Welcome to Keeping Up with Data. Keeping Up with Data is the podcast that keeps data enthusiasts up to speed with what is happening in the data world. We bring in the leading minds from the data industry to talk all things career, news, embarrassing stories, failures and successes.
So something really important for us here at Precision Sourcing is mental health. It's something we've been focused on a lot over the last year or so, and we're lucky enough to have partnered with the Black Dog Institute. And we're going to be doing a lot of events with them this year. A lot of our events, money will be going towards them. And they're out there aiming to create a mentally healthier world for everyone. So if you wish to support the cause, please donate via the link in the bio on this podcast, and you'll be seeing a lot more information about Black Dog over the next year. Here we are once again on Keeping Up with Data with myself, Joel Robinstein. Today I'm joined by my colleague,
James Ross.
and we're very happy to be joined by our friend, Balaji Balaraman, but you go by Bala, as we
That's
know.
correct.
And as we always do on Keeping Up with Data, Bala, we're not going to introduce yourself for you. Please tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Bala. I have been in the data business for the last 15 years. Have been in 3 geographies. Started my career in US, then had a stint up in India, and this is my 3rd geography, Australia. Currently I'm working for National Australian Bank. I am the GM of the data platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So anything to do with data platforms, like that's part of my core work, right? So I enable the house in which the entire information is actually brought in, so that people can do analytics on top of it. So that's the best way that I can describe what I do.
Fantastic. Well, what I'm excited about to talk to you about today is you're one of the first people who manages really big scale teams that we've had on the podcast. So I think we'll dig into that a little bit today, how you do that as a manager, how you manage that day to day. We're going to do Emily on the streets, as we always do. She's out there asking questions. Data joke, we'll do our best with that. I don't think anyone's nailed that yet. We'll see how we go. But firstly, as we always do, just tell us a little bit about how you started out in data. It's always a good place to start.
So this was, I think, back in 2005. So I have a master's in operations research. So it's an arm of mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
And 2005, I was looking out for internships. So my first internship was offered by Continental Airlines in US. Now it's United.
Yep.
They merged with United. They offered me my first gig as a data analyst. So that's how I started. I had no clue about the fact that I think what the industry has to offer and what data it actually means. The day one on my job, I was thrown a data catalog. And I was actually asked the fact that I think, hey, can you construct a query out of it? Before that, I was actually just playing around with small data sets, right, in my uni. So this was my first experience with the data.
Wow. And what made you think this is going to be the career for me? Was it before you started that, or was it that day one when you looked at it and went, yes, this is it. I'm in the place I need to be?
I reflected upon that question some time ago, right? When I was reflecting upon it. It was not at that point. I think I've come to a very precise date. I think it was April 24th, 2012.
Wow.
It has a significance for me. The reason is the fact that I think that's the day when I decided that, hey, I need to pack my bags and I need to move from US to India. And that was a gig in which I started a big data labs for a major US financial services company. So I was the employee number 1 out over there. The reason why I chose that day was that decision is what actually created that period from 2012 to 2018 when I had the experience of creating everything around data. So it's not only about building the platform, it's about building some really cool applications. It's starting the team from 0 to now it's about 350. I think now they have grown much larger. So everything around data ecosystem, in fact, even choosing the building, what's going to go into the wallet. So if I have to reflect back, I think that moment was very sweet, or something that, hey, this is what I think data has actually given for me.
Yeah, okay. So you backed yourself, you really dove in headfirst at that point.
Exactly. And why April 24th I remember very clearly is because it's Sachin Tendulkar's birthday. He's one of my favorite cricketers.
Nice.
right? And it's his birthday, right? That's the day when I accepted this job to move to India.
Brilliant. Sachin was one of the best ever, eh?
Oh, I love him.
Was he the best ever?
Not sure, right? But he was one of the greatest.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way: the fact that I think when he is on the cricket field and when he is on the go,
Yeah.
I love him. I love him.
Yeah, he was
Right?
great to watch.
It's my personal favorite now is Dhoni, now who is also retired.
Yeah, you can say he's retired.
And all Indians, by the way, like, so
Yeah.
I'm biased.
Fair enough. That makes sense.
But I love Sachin.
Yeah, nice. Well, I mean, that's a good segue because you got involved in our data jam when we did that with Cricket
Competition.
Australia last year, right? Which we really enjoyed doing. And do you know what? Maybe a little bit of promotion for us and the data jams. It'd be great to hear from, I guess, why did you do it? Why did your team want to get involved in it? And what did you get out of it? Maybe just to take a step back to explain what the data jam is. So we work with the likes of the NRL, Cricket Australia, hopefully got one with Golf Australia coming up this year, side note, which we'll tell you about. They give us their data sets. We get teams of data scientists, data analysts together, and then they hack through that data and produce results, right? So you got involved in the Cricket Australia one last year. You obviously love cricket, but was there any other reason why you got involved in, and what did your team get out of it?
First of all, it was purely passion for cricket.
Okay, cool.
And for the very first time interacting with data for cricket.
Yeah.
And that probably was the sole reason that where me and my team took some time out of our busy schedule. So we worked nights and weekends.
Mm-hmm.
So we had our day jobs as well. To really participate in that competition. And we really, really wanted to do well in the competition. And the biggest candy for us was the fact that I think, hey, if we get selected in the finals, at least we would get to present to some of the biggest names in cricket.
Right.
Unfortunately for us, Corona came.
Yeah.
And it was virtual. It was still fun. We took a lot of screenshots.
Yeah, right. It wasn't
of
quite
us
the same
having
though, was
the
it?
virtual presentation to Justin Langer.
Yeah.
And Mitchell Stark was also there.
Exactly.
Right. So it was really, really good the experience for us.
Yeah, I think the big thing for us with the Cricket Data Jam was as soon as they approached us saying, hey, we want to do one like with the NRL, they were like, and Justin Langer's involved, Steve Smith's keen, the team want this. And you could just see that there was that drive from Cricket Australia, which I think brought the energy to the event. Like you say, a massive shame that we didn't get to meet them and actually shake their hands, right? But there you go. I'm going to come to you, James, on this because, we talked to some of our clients. In fact, we had a conversation yesterday with one who are a sports analytics company, and they were saying, hey, it'd be great if we can find people who love sport, who get sport, to help them with the data. Like, how important do you think it is, and I'll come to you as well, Bala, to be passionate about what you do? How much extra does that give you as a candidate, maybe even in the market when you're going for a job, if you can walk in there and be like, hey, I love sports, and this is a sports analytics company. Is that important?
I think it's very important because I think if you're passionate about something, like, for example, you guys, it's outside your day job when you do the day jam, you're passionate about it, you put in the time, you put in the extra effort, you'll give it your all. And I think when you've got passion behind something, you're always willing to go the extra mile, and it doesn't feel like you're going the extra mile. If we ever did an event on cars, I know I'd be heart and soul straight into that because that's my forte. But I think passion is a really big thing, especially in this industry. I think we're seeing nearly every other industry see how important data is and starting to figure out how they can utilize it, figure out how they can use it to make, whether it's a game or make the company or make something better. And I think finding people who then have those expertise and have the skills within the data world but have the passion is like matching it really, really well. And I think it just kind of gets you the best result and gets you someone who will always put their best foot forward. That's
a great shout. So let's flip this to you and let's change the question slightly. So some people may have a massive passion for banking. Some people may not. Some people might have a massive passion for data. Some people might not, but they're all working in data. Could you talk us through maybe some of the different personalities you see and some of those really passionate people that you've seen as well and how that helps them with their day-to-day job? And for you, I guess, do you need to be really passionate about banking or?
So what I'm passionate about is actually in financial services. This is where the crossroads of the most complicated problem comes in because you have got humans interacting with data and systems, right? And every human has got a different perception. So these are different personas. Like, you have got a regulator who has got a very different view compared to somebody who is going to be sitting on this side, like a banker, who at the end of the day also wants to sell products, right? So these two are completely different positions that you are in. So this creates a lots of interesting dynamics.
Yeah.
So that's what's got me into this world. I've never moved away from financial services because getting anything delivered into the market becomes twice or thrice more complicated, and also you need to be responsible, right? So what you do with your data, what you do with your products, you need to be really responsible, because at the end of the day, it's about the community, right? Which we all live in, and we have all seen 2008.
Yeah.
At least some of us.
Yeah.
I don't know who is going to actually watch this podcast. But 2008 was really an eye-opening moment for myself. I was in New York at that point of time, and it was really, really a time to reflect that are we being responsible? So that made me really think that what really is driving me, probably from a passion perspective.
Yeah.
So that was probably my motivation, right, to stay around actually in this industry.
Brilliant. And so what's your expectation of your team? I mean, I think you mentioned you're managing about 300 people or something, is it?
So right now, yes, about 300 people.
Cool. So do you have that same expectation of your team? Or do you have those kind of few that are really passionate that help drive the whole kind of 300 people, and then everyone else kind of is there to collect their paycheck? Or like, what kind of dynamic do you see in that sense? Because you're obviously someone who's got the passion and you've driven yourself, right?
So I see, different motivations, and my job as a leader is to actually identify what's their motivation. And what I'm now seeing is the fact that I think now I can actually classify them well, right, into different categories depending upon what kind of experience that they had, what kind of backgrounds they had. So let's say, for example, when I was working in India, most of my engineers came from product companies like Yahoo, Google, Amazons of the world. Their motivations are a lot different than somebody who might have come from a services background. So you need to start tailoring your approach and identify some common points. So what would you tell somebody who is coming from a product company? That why this world is so different and complicated. So we have to probably position this as a very complex problem, because that will start building patience in them.
Yeah, okay.
So you can't, so they would expect things like the fact that I think, hey, they just published a piece of code, I should be able to deploy it.
Sure.
No, you cannot deploy it. That would be somebody else who would be deploying the code on behalf of you. They don't get that complex. They don't get that concept. So we need to probably explain to them that why that's important.
Sure.
Right? What's division of responsibility is.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about the fact that I think, hey, we do not trust you, but we need to show the same trust to our customers, and we need to also showcase the same trust to our regulators. So identifying those different motivations has something I think you need to do a lot of trial and error. So, and along the way, there are lots of failures, lots of successes, and you start catering your approach towards so many different people.
Right. Well, we say now internally, in order to treat everyone the same, you have to treat everyone differently. And what we mean by that is, if you put together a blanket flexibility policy for your company, for example, it might on the surface seem amazing, and everyone from external's like, oh my God, you guys are doing a great job, but you might need to pick up a kid early in the morning, drop them off at a different time. So your flexibility might be, I need flexibility on my start times. Your flexibility might be, I need to be able to work from wherever I want, whenever I want, right?
Correct.
So what you're saying here is everybody's why is different. You need to explain the why differently, and you need to understand that person on an individual level.
Yes. So, and it does take a lot of energy probably from leaders, but that's exactly our job is.
Yeah.
So our job is to ask questions, but do not interfere with the answers. So I completely believe in it. The fact that I think I would ask them questions, and in those questions are those hidden whys.
Yeah.
Right? And let them answer, and let them actually understand the process of the fact that I think, okay, right, why this is a little bit more complicated. And that's an art. And that's why I would say the fact that I think it has become more of like an art than science.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think as things are getting more complicated, this is going to be more. This is going to be a space which is going to evolve.
100%. So to shift the conversation slightly, and James, you know as well as I that senior roles within data, especially senior roles within banks, they often don't come on the market, right? There's always somebody
ready to jump up.
Exactly, right? But you're someone who's managed to go from one place to another into a very senior position. It's not something that we see a lot of. We do see it, but I had a conversation with someone at one of the banks today. They had 3 senior manager roles, and they wanted 3 people earmarked for them, right? So how did you set yourself out from the crowd? How did you stand out to NAB to be like, you know what, we're going to bring someone in from external? Was it who you know, what you know, how you know? Like, what tactics did you use?
That's a good question. I didn't use any tactics per se, but I think maybe reflecting upon it, the background, the kind of problems that which I've actually solved, the exposure which I had in 3 different geographies, all of that constituted towards a very rich set of experience, which I can go and actually speak about. Hey, I have tried this and I have failed failed at it. Actually, I've been using that word a lot. I use failures a lot than successes. So I can tell the fact that I think, okay, right, when I was working for a large US financial services company, we ingested the data 3 times over from scratch. And in all 3 of them, we learned incrementally.
Yeah.
And that experience counts.
Yeah, 100%.
We can tell you the fact that I think what we did wrong the first time, what we did wrong the second time, what we did wrong the third time as well.
Yeah.
But maybe that the third wrong wasn't that great enough for us to reconstitute that we're going to throw everything away and going to restart.
Yeah.
But now, that was back in 2012, 13, 14. Technology has evolved.
Exactly.
Now, I don't need to probably do the same kind of like a mistakes because technology has already accommodated for those mistakes.
Yeah.
So that's the, maybe I think, explaining and reflecting upon experience. So I do maintain a 2-pager of learning all the time, and I did put in my diary in every 6 months I update that learnings. So that's something I think I can quickly look it up as like a flashcard. Right? And not every time when you go out over there, you need to try to succeed, note down your failures, and I've noted down a bunch of them. But what was the core learning?
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes I think we go with a gut-based decision. It takes time, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months to pan out whether we were right, whether we were wrong.
Yeah, 100%. I like what you're saying, because at the end of the day, it's easier to learn from a mistake than it is to replicate success.
That's correct.
Because in that moment of success, you're just lost in it almost.
Yeah.
Everything's going well for you, right? So, James, to you. So, tenure versus what Bala's just said there. I'm not saying that you've bounced about, but you go to some hiring managers, they want to see 8, 9 years, 10 year, same place. Other people, they love the 2 years here, 2 years there. Like, what are you seeing from the market as to which way it's leaning at the moment?
I'm leaning more towards like the bouncing around, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's the fact that, especially the last 2 years, it's been quite unique, so to speak, in everything that's happened. Although, you know, what from our surveys and from what we see on the market, like most people stay in a role on average around 2 years. So if, you know, someone's jumping around every 2 or 3 years, that's still pretty much on average. They're still kind of giving some good value. I think when you look at tenure, it's not necessarily a fact of, you know, oh, you weren't there for 10 years, it's not good. It's maybe looking at what they've achieved. Because I think you could have people who've been in a company for 2 years and they could have brought a lot of value and had a lot of failures and learned a lot from that, versus someone who's maybe been in a company 12 years and they've been there 12 years, although maybe they actually haven't achieved too much. Maybe they haven't done too much. It's been more of a light keeping job. So I think it's not necessarily about how long you've been somewhere, but what you've actually done there and what you've learned while you were there.
So you're saying I should leave Precision after 11 years?
Yeah.
No, fair enough. So I'm asking you a lot of questions that I didn't prep you on today, Bala. I apologise. I did say we'd go off piste a little bit. I want to take this question to looking at someone's CV, and I'm sure you've looked at nearly as many CVs as me over the years, right? And that's something that you come up against a lot, James, where they'll people pick out a minute detail from a CV. Like, how much stock are you putting in? Like, how much do you read a CV of someone who's put in front of you nowadays? Like, how important is that to you?
It's important to get a perspective about the diversity of the experience that which a person has. But can that be conveyed in a single page? I think that's more important, right? The more lengthy it gets, it's very difficult to understand. Or it looks a little bit more, the fact that I think the message might not come a little bit more clearer through.
Yeah.
So it's important, but it's not the most like a key decision maker. I do definitely look at the fact that I think LinkedIn. I do definitely look at like Medium. So what you have maybe posted.
Sure.
Right. So how have you constructed yourself are you somebody who consumes information?
Sure.
Are you somebody who also shares information? Right. All of this now has become part and parcel of who you are and your persona. So I think all of these things are now probably going into the mixture.
Yeah, there's a lot now. I mean, we use social media. I mean, you know about us, the way we use social media and branding and marketing, and if anything, anyone in whatever role you're doing right now, there's a percentage of your job that is marketing you. You're marketing your brand and what you're giving to the community and what you're taking. So that makes sense. I think one of the things that a lot of people maybe within data miss with the CV is, and it's the thing that comes up every time, is that telling the story with the data is more important than often the data. And I guess it's the same way with the CV. Just tell a story of you in a page or two, rather than just showing everything that you've got, right?
Correct. Right. I think the 10 points or the 10 diverse experience that you can probably highlight, that might be actually a killer.
Yeah, I agree. All right, cool. So we've done the who you are generally. We've got a bit of an idea of who you are. We're going to go off piste again. We're going to do the best data joke. We're going to hit up Emily on the streets. It's my favourite moment. It's James' least favourite moment of the podcast. So we're going to give it a go. James, you got to go first today, okay, on your best data joke. And Bala, I don't know whether you got a story or joke or summit, but we're going to see how we go. Over to you, Mr. Ross.
I need to find what the exact joke is because I know the punchline, but I don't want to get the setting up wrong.
Some say the setup's more important than the punchline.
Exactly. So if I get that wrong, then
no one has actually delivered.
Good.
Well, there's been a couple that have been all right. That we've got a few laughs. There's been more groans, I would say. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Cool. I filled for you there. Did you like that?
Yeah, I did. Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. All right, let's do this.
All right. So the Italians, they set up 2 telecommunications networks. They call them Data 1 and Disa 1.
Okay, nice. You got a laugh out of it.
Yeah,
That's
right,
pretty
okay,
good. You
that's
know,
good.
It's first
I
time
think
I've
was
ever
it a
got
pity laugh or was it an actual laugh? That's
It was
the
an
question.
okay laugh.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll take that.
Okay, cool.
It's a good.
All right, cool.
All
All
right.
right, Bala, here we go.
Actually, I don't have like a really great joke.
It's hard to think of data jokes. There aren't many out there. You can concede defeat. To
I'm
James.
trying to think about my mom. Right.
Yeah.
So she would have definitely cracked up some joke because she doesn't understand what I do.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Right. I'm trying to imagine moments of. Okay. Right. I think not a joke per se.
Yeah.
Right. So the way I measure the fact that I think the importance that which you have probably from a company perspective, right, is a simple metric that clicks away from CEO.
Right.
So, typically the fact that I think when you're a little bit more junior, you might have about 7 clicks to the CEO, 6, 5, 4, 3, right? And so I was telling my mom the fact that I think now I'm about 3 clicks away from the CEO. So my mom goes and tells everybody out over there that I am the number 3 person in a company.
That's brilliant.
Right. And somebody, I think the word got out. Good news is the fact that I think she lives in a small city in India.
Yeah.
Right. I'm assuming that those people don't talk to people up over here.
Yeah.
It's a good news that I'm a little bit more protected. So I think when I went to visit her, and somebody said that we heard that you're the number 3 person in this big company. I said, who told you so? I said, your mom said. Right? I think that was a really good joke. I thought the fact that I think of how somebody interprets the data.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
so my mom interpreted the data in that fashion. Maybe I never clarified to her what that means, that 3 clicks away. I didn't tell her the fact that I think maybe there are another 500 out over there who are also 3 clicks away.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I didn't give her the dimensionality of the problem.
But that's what mums are there for, right?
Yes.
To be proud and to tell everyone, secret little. Do you know what? She probably knew exactly what you meant. But
Yeah.
she wanted to tell everyone, how proud she was of you at the end of the day, right?
No, I'm very positive the fact that I think this is how she interpreted it.
Oh,
Right?
really?
She has no clue about any org structures or how things are. Right. So she has been a homemaker all her life.
Sure.
So she hasn't never been in a corporate structure. But I'm pretty positive that this is how she understood
That's brilliant.
the data.
But your mum sounds like a gem, so at least she's proud of you. That's important. Good segue. When is knowing what is in the data not being enough? Like, what's the worst presentation that you've maybe ever delivered, and you've gone, yes, I've nailed that. They get exactly what I mean, and maybe you come out of it, and then 2 or 3 days later, they've done something. You're like, oh, that is definitely not the message I was trying to get across. Have you ever had a moment like that?
It happens all the time, right?
Okay, so you have then, yeah, sure.
Not in terms of like a presentation which I made, but a very simple example which I'll give you is every company does employee surveys.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to measure employee engagement.
Yeah.
And the way it's measured is the fact that I think we will ask you a bunch of subjective questions and we'll ask you to rate between 1 to 10. And a bunch of employees would have actually rated you. Now, if we figure out the fact that I think by giving a scoring, by giving weights in some mathematically complicated way, that we would say the fact that I think the engagement score is 55 out of 100, which means that you don't have a satisfied employee workforce.
Sure.
Now, that's a little bit more of like a gotcha moment.
Yeah.
But how do you really now take that piece of information and try to make some sense out of it?
Yeah.
So that happens all the way, by the way, all the time in every list or everything, I think, which you typically get probably from senior management. Hey, do this action item or that action item. So in my experience, I'm trying to identify areas in which when I ask questions, I'm trying to understand the fact that I think, am I asking an ambiguous question or am I asking a very precise question? And if it is an ambiguous question, how should I interpret that ambiguous question? So what I typically do is like I do silent meetings nowadays.
Okay.
So in a silent meeting, if I have a question, I would ask 20, 30, whoever, like, I'll just call like a random bunch of people, right? I need to bring them like as a focus group. And I'm going to use one of the tools like the Mentimeter or Siloed, and I'm going to ask them questions.
Okay.
Nobody opens up their mouth because that creates bias. That swings the decision, right? I would have already thought through all the precise questions that I want to ask, and I will also let some open-ended questions so that I can do a little bit more like a word cloud or something of that sort to really understand the interpretation, right? Still not have nailed this, but feel that that's probably where if somebody tells me an information which I'm not able to ascertain, I'm going to call a bunch of 30 people and I'm going to do this exercise in a silent meeting and get a little bit more information.
So you go into the silent meeting because you've got something that you need to understand. You ask the question, you pose that to the group.
Yes.
You stop talking.
Nobody talks.
No one talks.
No one
so
talks.
How do you get the information back?
So they all log into their phone.
Yeah.
There's a survey code.
Yeah.
You put the survey code.
Okay.
And in real time, you start answering the questions and everybody can see in real time
The answers.
the answers.
So then when you ask the next question, they've seen the answer to the other one.
Yes.
Okay, so what have
But
you...
we get 30 people talking at the same time. Otherwise, if it's a meeting,
Oh, only one person can talk. I
one
get what you're
person can
saying.
talk and that can start swaying.
Sure.
That can start introducing the bias.
Well, yeah, especially because
Yeah.
in a meeting you'll have maybe 10 people who
Correct.
are going to be the talkers and 20 who
Yeah.
wouldn't, and then
Yeah,
they'll
it
pick
makes sense.
sides and
Interesting. And so have you got an example where that's really worked for you, or?
Very simple. Right now, I think we are all a little bit more struggling with answering a question, return to work.
Oh, God, yeah.
So return to work is a very difficult question now, considering the last 2 years have fundamentally changed how we work.
Yeah.
Now, the expectation is the fact that I think, hey, we need to all come to work. Now, when we ask that question in that particular fashion, people have lots of interpretation of that question. So senior management may think the fact that I think, okay, right, the reason why I think employees do not want to come to work is because their productivity might be hampered.
Sure.
Or their flexibility might be a little bit more compromised. Sorry, this is how the employees are interpreting.
Sure.
The senior management doesn't believe the fact that I think, hey, productivity is what they are a little bit more getting at. But I can tell you the fact that we have lots of data points that in the last 2 years, we have seen productivity go sky high.
Right.
Everybody is working 16, 17 hours a day.
Yeah.
Right? They're not able to plug off. Probably productivity is not in question.
Yeah.
Right? There are different factors in question. But when you ask a question, I think everybody is feeling the fact that I think, hey, management is trying to come to make you come to work because we don't believe the fact that you're productive.
Right.
So to ask that question in a silent meeting, I would provide them answers on what do they really think about the management.
Yeah.
So is that one, or is that the second one? Or do you think the fact that I think the management is overall worried that, hey, do you have career growth? Do you have enough people interactions?
Right.
Are different economies based on how we go to work? Like not all economies, all different parts of economies have evolved to work from home. Are those impacted? So if I have list down 6 or 7 options and ask them, point me out, they will tell me what's in their mind.
Yeah. That's brilliant.
Right?
Even for that hot topic right now, I mean, I think we might do that at Precision, just what you've said. I think that's a really good idea.
Right? I can share my silo survey.
That would be
like
great.
About 7 questions which I asked.
Yeah, because it's such a minefield now.
Yeah.
And the old questions aren't the questions we should be asking anymore, because we know we can see the data about productivity. We can see what works for people, right?
Yep.
But then we also see that everybody's different. So then you go, right, okay, well, let's implement this blanket thing for everyone.
Yep.
It doesn't work for Dave and Jen down the road, right?
Exactly.
Very interesting. I like it. It's a new way of doing things.
Yep.
And do the team feel safe? Do they feel like this is...
The best comment that I've got is the fact that I think this is the most innovative way to get output from 30 people.
Right.
In less than 30 minutes.
Right.
So we have got everybody contributing in less than 30 minutes. Otherwise, in a 30-minute conversation, I know for a fact that I might hardly get 1 or 2 people who are the most vocal to speak. And the other voices are a little bit more suppressed.
Brilliant. I love that.
Yeah,
We're going to snip that.
30 people who are essentially spending half an hour and actually all contributing.
Yes.
They're all actually feeling they're making good use of their time.
And they can all see the results in real time.
Rather than being sat in a 30-minute meeting and going, why am I here?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. Good. That's a great thing we're going to take away from today's pod. We're going to segue again. We're going to go external.
Yep.
We're going to go to Emily on the streets. And it's a special edition because Emily's in New Zealand. So there's going to be a lot of Kiwis on this.
Nice.
Emily on the street. Today's question is, what is SQL?
All right, good.
So usually we have 5 or 6 people who get asked. How many random Kiwis are going to know what SQL is out of 5?
2.
You got 2? Okay, 2, yeah.
I'll say 1.
1, yeah. I think 1 as well. I'm going to go
1 is also it's a long stretch, but let's see.
I think 1, and we don't accept half answers. Like if someone says something to do with data, it's not enough.
Okay, all right, good.
You know, it's got to be like...
Okay, it's a structured query language.
Yeah,
all right,
well, maybe not that far. Maybe like a coding language, or used to query.
Okay,
We'll give them a little bit of leeway. Okay,
all right.
Let's have a listen. Here we go.
What is SQL?
Silly quarantine locations.
Sequence, quantitative, linguistics.
Squealy music.
SQL is a database for data analysts to
go to and put the info in and work their magic.
Okay, so we had 4. What do you reckon? We're going to give the last one a point?
Oh, yes. I
I
think
think
so.
we have
Yeah.
to, don't we?
1:4. Okay.
Yeah, 1 out of 4 is pretty good.
It's good.
Yeah, the first 3 were nowhere near it, were they? Yeah, fair enough.
Did like squirrely music though.
Yeah, swirly music is good. That is good. All right. Into some questions just generally about the data world more broadly now. So the world's changing, the data world's changing, everything's moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. What are you seeing right now that maybe not that it annoys you, but the buzzwords, the buzz topics that are getting in the way of real work, shall we say? Like, what are you getting kind of bugged by at the moment?
So, one thing is automation. Now, this is a very tough concept. So when a human interacts with a machine, right, we can call it as like everybody, all of us, like now interact with a machine, right? If you are on a recruitment drive, right, you get some of the information from your machine and then you make a call. That's always a process, right, around it. Then there is a machine which interacts with machine. Now, when you think about automation, is in two spirits. When a human is interacting with a machine, that's a good case for automation, but for careful automation, right? I think we are thinking about now really out there concepts in terms of AI, machine learning, really extracting the intelligence out of the process to make it extremely simple for humans. So a lot of interesting ways that how you can actually start automating that process. The second one is machine to machine automation. Now this is where it's a classical case for people like me from a platform perspective to know the fact that I think if it's a machine to machine interactions, which means that we have made it too complicated. It's a classic case for code optimization.
Yeah.
But more often what's happening is the fact that I think we're not able to recognize these two different paradigms. We think we can automate everything without understanding what we are trying to automate is human touching a machine, machine touching a machine, then a machine touching a human. Now that's a very complicated process. So if you try to automate that, we think that every automation is actually going to help us.
Sure.
So we need to be a little bit more careful because there is a diminishing return.
Brilliant.
The more time that you're going to be spending in automating is it costs money.
Yeah.
It's going to definitely cost a lot of structured time. If the project fails, lots of stakeholder communication. So a lot of effort goes into just probably simplify a process. And by that time, maybe I think the reality has changed. So if something has actually like this pandemic has taught us that in one single shot on a single day, the fact that I think a world can come to a complete standstill.
Yeah.
So whatever we were doing a little bit more in terms of like, say, for example, installing some crazy machines in all of our offices, is just of no use, no value.
Yeah.
So that's why I think I would say the fact that I think that automation, that target should be the fact that I think, hey, can I take the simplest piece of process? Can I automate it? And can I see really value? Which means it cannot be more than 2 weeks or 4 weeks before you can see something or touch or feel it.
That makes sense. So rather than trying to deal with the big problem, the broad thing, let's automate everything. Let's just take things in chunks, step by step, make sure we get it right.
This is the digital journey, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I think it's being positioned as a little bit more different. Like now you will hear all these buzzwords, digital transformation. From late back in the 80s, we were all digital. Or the time when the computer was invented, we were digital. Right? It's just the fact that I think, okay, right now we want to talk about like some really crazy use cases. That's all fine. But the cost of developing those are going to be also enormous.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think this leads into a few different points that we see quite a lot in the industry generally. One of the things that you'll hear a lot about from candidates and people we speak to is, I've automated this, I've saved this amount of time. Yeah. Everyone's so focused on that, like, I've saved this time. But to what detriment or to what benefit? And that's the piece that people really struggle. Yeah, okay, you've automated that piece of the process, but what does it mean? And why did you do that? Or did you just spend 6 months doing it because that's what you thought you were meant to be doing, right? And by taking it down to the simplest form, you can see the direct benefit, you can understand it, you're not trying to solve too big a problem at once, right?
We all need to experience that automation. I think that's the most important thing, that we need to experience that automation.
Yeah.
And if it is going to take an year and a half, I think you just said the fact that I think people are bouncing around, maybe think 2 years, is it tenure? Many of the people are not able to even experience what they really started,
Yeah.
their journey.
100%. It's interesting that you say that. You're probably the first person who's brought that to our attention. Like a lot of these podcasts, and generally everyone is talking about automation and how it's such a great thing. And it's almost the scaled down version of AI. And everyone's like, oh, well, you know, AI, everyone's talking about, you know, and getting crazy about. Let's just automate for now and that'll be fine. But you're saying, well, even that in itself needs to be looked at in more detail as to how it's being done.
Yeah, something tangible, something you can touch and you can feel, and you can see it in your own career, at least 4 to 5. I'll probably take 4 or 5 in 2 years.
Yeah, brilliant.
Which you can see.
That makes sense. Okay, perfect. So to you first, James, then to you, Bala, like candidates who stand out at the moment, you know, obviously you've got a team of 300. For you, James, what are the types of candidates that are really standing out? And then we'll go to Bala in terms of, you know, what would make candidates stand out for you? And then someone can take something away from that maybe. So what are you looking for, first of all, James, as a recruiter?
Well, I think obviously you always look, depending on the sorts of roles you're looking for, like certain technical skills. It's also very much on, like I said, the achievements, what they've learned, what they've actually added to the business that they're in, or like what they've taken away from a project. Like what have they contributed? What have they been a part of? Where that is like maybe they've automated a process, or they've been part of building up a platform, or they've been part of rolling out a governance sort of framework. And then from that, it's being able to identify what they've learned, being able to relay it, say, for example, to someone who's not technical, to someone who doesn't come from the same background, and having, I guess, like a clear idea of what they want to do next. Like it's a very hot market. It's very candidate short, very job heavy. So, you know, it's great to think, oh, you know, I can jump up to a job where I'm going to learn more and get a massive pay rise. Although, you know, in a year's time, when things maybe aren't exactly the same, is that what you want to do? Is that going to be getting you on that next step to where you want to go? So I think a mix of like good technical skills, good communication skills, those softer skills are really important. But that ability to identify what they've done, what they've contributed, and where they want to go, even if it's like in 1 or 2 years. Like I think the last 2 years has shown us that you can't always have a 5 or 10 year plan because things change rapidly. But even saying, I know one day I want to be a solution architect. So how do I have to get there? What steps going to take? If I hit that in 2 years, wonderful. If it takes me 5 years, so be it. Like knowing you've got something you want to work towards.
That makes sense.
And I mean, you can always then reevaluate it in 2 years. It might be a brand new role that you can then end up working towards. So just being conscious of that, I think, is a really important thing.
And how does that resonate with you as a hiring manager?
I think 100%, right? Clarity, thought diversity, ability to tell a story.
Yeah.
Ability to tell an experience, articulate that experience. And it doesn't need to be the fact that I think like you need to be really ace at some of your softer skills.
Mm-hmm.
You can use n number of tools which are now available, right? Maybe you can probably sketch something, or maybe you can show it like as a funny story in a PowerPoint, right? Or you can actually show like something which you have seen like as a common, like a YouTube story, right? Just show that. Yeah. Right. So something I think which makes you a little bit more stand out, but also helps us understand that you're clear. Like to James's point, like you're clear about where you want to go. You're able to articulate a story. Right. Right. You're able to connect to your audiences. I think that's exactly what we're a little bit more looking for.
Clarity is a great word because let's be honest, everybody's busy now, right? How are you? I'm busy. How are you? I'm busy. Right. Fine. Everybody's busy. So you don't have long to grab someone's attention now. And I mean, even sat here in this podcast, 30 emails, 20 text messages, whatever, you know, your brain's always somewhere else. You need to be able to grab someone's attention. I like what you said. Not everyone has to be the best orator ever.
Correct.
You don't have to necessarily be the best storyteller at using your words. Okay, I can grab their attention with a good dashboard or a video of something or a blog or whatever it is, but stand out. And I think a lot of candidates right now because, let's be honest, the power, if we call it the power, is in the candidate's hands.
Yeah.
Aren't as focused on that piece. They're going, well, I'll just walk in there and they'll hire me no matter what, right? And what that leads to, James, is what you've said is 6 months later, this is not the job that
Not
I
what
wanted.
I wanted.
I just walked
Yeah.
into it because I thought it was right. So clarity on who you are, what you want, and at the end of the day, everyone's going to make mistakes on their career. Fine,
That
we
makes
accept
sense.
that, right? But I like the word clarity. That's a good thing to take away. So look, we haven't got long left, so I'm going to just do 2 quick things with you before we have to move on. Firstly, book, and then we're going to talk to you about you as a leader and why people should work for you. But literature that you've been reading over the years, anything that you've read that you think would be really useful to people who listen to this that they might want to read?
Culture Map is a book which comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Again, I'm superly interested in people. Different cultures, how would they react? How would they take your ideas? And if you need to start telling your stories to such a large audience, such a diverse audience, now we are all interconnected in the world. So it was a very, very interesting read for me personally.
Brilliant.
And
So more people orientated than data orientated as such.
exactly right. I think trying to find that common that commonality that which we have as human beings, right? So let's say, for example, you're a pet lover, I'm a pet lover. If I know that, I think I can strike a conversation. Not only I can strike a conversation, I can make you feel aligned to some of my thoughts, and maybe we can probably do things together.
Yeah.
Right. But what drives people, like in Australia, it's completely different than what is driven in the US, right, or in India. So I think those things are a little bit more fascinating in that book.
Brilliant. That's a good suggestion, especially for people who want to maybe expand into leadership, expand into dealing with people more. All right. So final thing that we'll talk about today, unless you want to add anything at the end, of course, is just you as a leader. We always try and ask why should people work for you? Why should people want to work in your team? Just in case anyone was interested in getting in touch.
Okay. So me personally, you would love to. I love to find and challenge in every aspect of the work which I do. So for me, like example, if somebody comes to me with a problem, the fact that I think, okay, right, hey, why do I need to do timesheets? Right? I find an interesting challenge out over there. The fact that I think, hey, why do you need to do timesheet and what can we do about it?
Yeah.
So I just love the fact that I think every small thing which I experience on a day-to-day basis, I see an interesting challenge out over there. I have about 9 patents. So I can tell you some aspects about the fact that I think what's important, how important is it for you to fail? And last but not the least, I think I can help you understand that what you really are passionate about.
Yeah.
Right. I've worked with so many individuals. The fact that I think to come to a discussion or a decision that, hey, this may not be the right career opportunity for you. Right. And that's also, it's a very good to know that what are your, as I said, right, clarity, right, to provide that clarity back into that individual.
So they're going to know where they stand.
So so to summarize, to push the boundaries of their thinking.
Yeah.
Second is the fact that I think clarity where they currently are standing, where they want to go, where they're going to see the forks in the life, right? And the third thing is doing really cool things with data. When I say cool things with the data, as mundane as a Excel spreadsheet is, or like actually as a Word document it is, but it has got lots of interesting facets.
Yeah.
So when I read a resume, I'm like just seeing lots of interesting things that what you have actually explained. Can we take those bits and bytes of the information and can we derive some really cool, interesting insights out of it?
Brilliant.
Right? So I think those 3 things.
Great. Well, look, I mean, there might be some people listening today who might be interested in that. So
Thank you.
Might get some people your way. Well, look, that's it from me. Anything else you'd like to add, Bella?
Nothing, right? This was a really great opportunity to have like a nice conversation about data, about life, about career. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Nothing too serious. I really enjoyed it. James, anything to add from you, mate?
No, I'm all good. I appreciate you coming on, Bala. It's been great having you on.
Brilliant.
James.
And we'll
Thank you,
see
Joel.
everyone next week.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.